Today is our third meeting of our planned 6 meetings. We are going to talk about inspections. And there is one important thing. This looks almost the same, but no, this is the recording availability. And why I'm putting here separately, because our great supporter, Lydia, is on vacation, well, vacation. And I wish she could take more than just the short time she is taking. But due to that, the recordings are going to be available with some slight delays. So for auditing for last week, that is already available in your learning center in the course. For today's recording, that will be between 6th and 9th of September. And then the rest will be, as usual, about a week after the meeting. But today's recording availability will be delayed. So apologies for that, but together with me, wish Lydia happy vacations, and we will tolerate this small delay. I hope that nobody would be really annoyed about it. Of course, I can share the slide.
Camilla, one quick question. I still haven't gotten the link to actually sign up for the test. I did get the information from Lydia that it was accepted, but I did not get that link. So do you know the time frame?
You mean the official announcement?
Yeah. To say that
Okay.
here's where you can sign up. I mean, for the centers and things.
We can choose, and Lydia actually posted the link in a response.
Okay.
If it was just to the faculty or if it was only if it was also for the study groups, but I can provide the link. So
okay,
that should be easy.
Cool.
And
thank you.
Then yeah, I will send a short message in your study group connect page, so you can get it and you can sign up. If you know it has been accepted, you can sign up. You don't need to wait for the official announcement for whatever reason it's delayed.
Cool.
Okay, so again, let's very briefly summarize writing the exam and the basic rules. 165 multiple choice questions. 15 of them, and nobody knows except, of course, for the staff, which ones are not scored. These are tested, these questions. So that's why they are included. But I don't know, you won't know, and they are somewhere. You have 3.5 hours, meaning about 1.5 minutes per question. If you need additional time, or if you are not native English speaker, you may purchase additional time. That's 1 hour in the learning center, 2 hours for online. The cost is not very high. I believe it's $50, and it's worth doing that because you may stumble across word that is not familiar. So having the opportunity to have more time to think about it would be also relieving the stress and not make you nervous just because you need to read it a couple of times. Practice exam is free of charge. So you can take it 3 times, I believe. It has some limitations. The questions are kind of aging, about 10 years old. But there is a cost involved. It's developed by professional quiz makers with the same logic as the real exam. So we were offering our support, saying we can try to update it and say, well, yes, but. And because of this but, we could not. Maybe in future, we have some experience with creating quizzes, so perhaps it does not have to be fully outsourced. We can be of some help, but the decision is yet to be made. There are 3 different areas of regulations covered in the exam: FDA 21 CFR, ICHE 6, and it's the current R2, not the upcoming R3. Don't worry about that. because until it's published, it's still a little bit uncertain how exactly it's going to be worded and how exactly it's going to look like. And 21 CFR Part 11 for electronic records and electronic signatures. Why? Because we have so many different computerized systems used in clinical trials in the regulated space. So we should know what 21 CFR Part 11 means. We use electronic signatures. Just a very brief example, we have DocuSign and we have Adobe Sign, two very favorite tools for e-signatures. They have two versions. One is with 21 CFR Part 11 compliance ensured. There is additional pack of software behind the signature, and that's for regulated industry for regulated purposes. The signature that you would use without having to comply with 21 CFR Part 11, the subscription is much cheaper. So I'm using that one because for my contracts or invoices, it doesn't matter. My tax authority does not care at all. But if I need something for submission, I need to make sure I get the pack that has the compliance ensured, and that subscription is significantly more expensive for both tools. Read candidate handbook, other resources, read the regulations, and read them not to memorize them, but to understand what they mean. What is the purpose? Typically in preambles, it's explained the scope, the applicability, and the very purpose why the regulations is seeing the light of the world. So this drives the direction, which lenses to put on to understand the regulation. What's the ultimate purpose? Like ICH E6, one is of course the protection of the participants, their safety, well-being, their rights. And the second is make sure that we can trust the data for regulatory and for companies also for business decision making. Always take conservative approach. Your company may be doing it differently. Regulations tell us what is the goal, what is the, let's say, framework, but they don't give us the recipe. They don't give us the do 1, 2, 3, 128, and then you are fine. And that's fine that they are not doing that, because we need to make sure that we do what we can depending on our company structure, size, area of operation, geography, and so on and so forth. So regulations cannot be way too prescriptive. If they are, we typically find them creating more problems than good. Read the tips of your peers. I already put this is a repeat. You will hear this repeat again and again, because we got the feedback after the spring exam. We didn't learn about how to take the exam. So repetition is the mother of wisdom. Let's do it. It seems there is quite a lot of time, but that's relative. Some answers could be spit out immediately. For some answers, you may need more time. You have true, false. You have single answer for multiple choices. And you have also multiple good answers to complete one correct answer. So you have all three basic types questions included. If you are not sure, guess. Very easy. Typically, you can exclude two answers because they are obviously wrong. That's very clear there. So for the rest, it's 50-50, like flipping a coin. So you have a 50% chance you get it right, and you have a 50% chance you get it wrong. It's like randomization in a clinical trial if it's 1-to-1. If it's 3-to-1, that's a different story. Watch for keywords. Keywords in answers and keywords in questions, they should be a kind of match or hand in hand. If they contradict, that should not be most likely the correct answer. apply logic and common sense, and try to imagine yourself in the situation that is described in a question or a scenario. What would be the thing that you would do based on your knowledge, on your training, on your reading the regulations? Most likely you are going to get it right. Because this is already, running in your blood. You've been working in the regulated area. You've been doing the QA job. Maybe you haven't been auditing, but you are a QA person. So it's a certain mindset and looking at things in a certain way. And don't try to overanalyze your answers. For myself, I typically have a correct answer at the first shot, and then I choose the wrong one because I start overthinking and second guessing myself and overanalyzing, and finally I end up with some kind of nonsense. So let's talk briefly about inspections. Still, it's ICH E6R2, and ICH addresses only sponsor audits, not regulatory inspections. These are in inspection manuals, compliance program manuals. Regrettably, the EMA does not really issue anything like that. I envy sometimes, or I'm jealous on about our US colleagues having these resources, but I still take it. The thinking of the inspector would be the same, so it's useful to read them and to know them. So even if you are working outside US, you can find some very valuable information. And the FDA Investigations Operations Manual. The important thing is not to start rushing to become inspection ready, but to keep working in a way as to be inspection ready. When the inspection comes, the European inspectors typically give an announcement and give a kind of warning we will be coming. FDA inspectors may just knock your door. As simple as that. For auditees or inspectees in the US. Outside, we have again an advantage because there is travel and logistics and so on and so forth. So there is a pre-announcement, usually about 3-4 weeks up front. Keep in good order things like trial master file, training documentation, shipping records and chain of custody of study drug or any other product, documentation related to important decisions, storyboards, decisions, and documentation of an important decision is not an email, please. If your company still tends to do that, keep discouraging them from this practice. It's a disaster. Try to find something 4 or 5, maybe even more years ago. Very, very, very difficult, if not impossible. So definitely, that's not a project management tool. Email is a communication tool. Keep that in mind and make it also, teach by example. If you need to announce a decision, use a relevant form. If there is no form, maybe have a memo or some kind of different format, but not an email. Have a robust CAPA process, focus on data handling, processing, integrity. We have an interesting conversation with one of my colleagues at the DIA. What is actually data integrity? And when I sent a definition I found provided by different organizations that I found on the internet, he told me, but this is not true. If I take it analytically and with my statistical hat on my head, data integrity means that data received is identical with data sent, hasn't been tampered with, and has the same quality and metadata and audit trails if included. It does not talk about completeness. It does not talk about accuracy only to a certain extent. So it's more about the exchange of data between different parties and making sure the data does not change on the way. So that was quite enlightening, and I agree with his logic. And I'm not surprised that we have so many different opinions and so many different explanations when people basically do not even align what data integrity is. So that was something, that was a today's discovery for me. Respond timely to any Form 483 or subsequent letter. Timelines are short, 2 weeks. The response should be complete and supported with the data. It's not just saying something nice, it's showing that what we say is being done. And many companies got warning letters because FDA look at what they have provided as supportive documentation, and they say, but this is not good enough. This does not really work out. So instead of getting out of 483, they got the warning letter, and that's that. It's still not the final outcome. There still is a way to get either with voluntary action indicated or no action indicated, depending on further collaboration. And hopefully it's not the ordered action or cease and desist. But the better answers and the better and to the point supportive documentation organizations provide, the better for them. 483 is not the end of the world, and may be issued for something pretty small. Inspectors are people, and I've seen 483 issued for a company in Europe doing bioequivalence studies, and they did not think about using financial disclosures in bioequivalence studies when it's submitted in the United States. And when I asked some other people from FDA I know, they told me, really? That's a bit exaggerated. So you see, even people from the same agency may see it differently. And one issues 483, the other one says, okay, that's not a big deal, especially since it was corrected during the inspection time. But we may not be always lucky with inspection. So let's go to the exam and discussion questions. But first, let me give the chance to my colleague panelists. Would you like to add anything about inspections, please, from your experience? And actually, Pam, you have a very recent inspection now, the experience. So why don't you tell a couple of things to our colleagues who prepare for the exam?
Certainly. I was just working on a project. It was about a 4-week project, a company being inspected by EMA. And it was extraordinarily stressful. There were some other factors that added to the stress factor and also the lack of support. They were recently acquired by another company, so there was a lot of integration going on. People had left that were key SMEs for the study. So we had about 2 weeks of preparation. This was the EMA sends a list of documents that they want to see that were put into like a share box that they started reviewing long before they actually showed up at the company. So there was, that's usually just documentation process. Hopefully TMFs are up to date. Things can be found quickly. There was also several vendors involved, such as CROs, statistical people, data management. So it was a lot of moving parts. And during the course of the actual inspection, and this is just my experience, for 4 days, they were actually there for a full week from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock every day. And we had 195 requests for documents, about 50 a day. Sometimes it was just we could pull it out of the TMF. Other times it was explain X, Y, and Z. They wanted to look at all the QEs and and the timing of those. So a lot of the things that we try to say as auditors, you should always be inspection ready, really came to fruition. Things that perhaps were hanging for a year, things like that. So it was such a learning experience for me also. I had been involved with FDA inspections, but EMA is very different in their processes. There was actually 3 inspectors from 3 different countries in Europe and worked together. These inspectors had also completed 2 site audits, one in the US, one outside the US. So they knew where all the skeletons were already. So when they came to the sponsor, they knew exactly what to ask for. So, cannot stress enough that being inspection ready starts on day 1. It really, really does. And this was a recently completed study. It wasn't even one like 5 years ago that, we've talked about that making sure everything is documented during the study and at the end of the study is archived correctly to go back and to be able to find things. It was tough. We had no idea. I wasn't part of the final discussion. There were some things that they need to get back to the EMA on. EMA has a 15-day rule also that things need to be addressed specifically. So mock inspections go a long way. Having even an independent person come in who's a specialist in this type of thing, of asking those questions to see how your process works with the, between the inspection room and the back room, because that was one of the hardest things that we kind of had to hammer out, is they didn't have a specific system such as Ready Room. You'll hear about that is actually set up for that type of thing. It shows great transparency to the inspectors on the documents once they're loaded. But asking those questions, going through, doing mock presentations with slide sets, because EMA asked for, it was 4 days of presentations from each of the different groups with specific bullet points. So they wanted to make sure that they had all of that even before they got there, and then ask for additional items there. So preparation. And inspection readiness is not just a term. It needs to be done during the course of the study, making sure that these things are fully documented.
Thank you. One of my friends, he says, apart from inspection readiness, there is also something like inspection preparedness. And he pointed out a kind of different thing. If you have vendors, especially if you have multiple, or if you have key vendors like a CRO, test it with them. Who is going to be there? And in his experience, his company was also inspected by EMA, and he said the problem was that the CRO sent the managers to be there supporting, but the managers were not working with the systems. They could not access the systems. They had all kinds of issues. So make sure that if you have vendors, then the right people are sitting at the table. Otherwise, it may look terribly, although in reality it's not. But it's just because they sent some, big shots. But these people are not working with all those systems on a daily basis. So who is at the table when you run your preparation and when the inspectors are there? Make sure that you have the right people who have the expertise, the access, who work with the systems, who can answer questions. At least have them, if they are in different parts of the world, have them sitting on standby to be ready to chime in remotely, whatever, but make sure they are ready, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning for them or whatever time zone they may be located.
Yep,
Michael,
we had
would you like to add anything from your experience, or Jenny?
Well, there you go. Okay. No, I think you all have been very thorough, so I don't really have anything to add at this point. So
Thank you. Since I cannot see it now, can you see if Michael is there? If he was able to join?
I don't see his name on the participants.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, maybe something didn't work out. Anyway, then let's return and go back to our practice exam questions. Oh, that was a little bit too early. I don't want to show the answer. I hope you are not fast readers. So, the investigator asks to review copies of the latest sponsor QA audit for the facility. What should the escort do? Yeah, by the way, do not leave the inspector unattended. Wandering around and looking at cupboards, talking to people, because disasters may happen if you allow to do that. Give whatever the inspector asks for. Tell her that you are not allowed to share internal audit reports with unauthorized individuals. Ask what she wants and try to negotiate an alternative. Contact your company's legal counsel for advice. Now, give your tip in the chat. And Jenny and Pam, if you can take a look at the chat, what answers are coming.
Yeah, we're looking.
So do we see any answers?
They're kind of all over the place, but this is an interesting question with how it is worded.
Yeah, you don't really want to say to the inspector unauthorized individual. That does not sound like creating a good environment.
Yeah, it looks like A, B, and C have few answers, but doesn't look like, oh, there's one D.
Yeah, I was gonna say I hadn't seen a D up until that point.
Yeah, there it goes.
I think my guess is this is maybe a GMP or a GLP facility audit, or which is not usually what I would host or support. But so I want to defer to Pam or Kamala.
I would say the rules of sharing internal audit reports are the same. It doesn't matter if it's a GLP facility or GMP or GCP.
Yes. So I would have said B, but the way the question is phrased, it wouldn't be, well, we all know it wouldn't be just the escort is having to make the final call. It's, there's usually some a host, or maybe the word should be escort, not escort, but host.
Yeah.
But usually there's a policy, it's written in the SOP as to what can be shared with an inspector. But I think, I would have gone with B.
Pam, you?
I think a lot of times it may not be exactly clear what they're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
So the host or escort or whatever is usually a quality person, usually is the host. And so they may say, we're not allowed to share full audit reports, but what can we provide to you to meet your request?
Mm-hmm.
So it may be something like, an audit plan, or, for the year, for an internal, it may be an audit certificate, if that is something that is provided, an audit log of audits that have been completed for the year. So it's almost a combination of B and C.
Yeah, but it would not be.
Yeah,
I see Notorious Goldman has said it wouldn't be the escort that negotiates that.
Well, I think escort's kind of a weird, because I think of escort as you're escorting them from the front gate to, or
Yes.
from, and then the audit host is the one is usually like the head QA person is usually that person. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
but
but since obviously this person is present during the conduct of the inspection, then let's not be concerned about the term. I would also understand
right.
as a host.
These are interesting questions, because you can have something like this where the question writer, whoever, probably was, I don't know if they're intending to make it kind of as tricky. I think it's a little bit tricky, but it might have been obvious to them what they were getting at, but from all our different backgrounds, we look at it and go, yeah. And this is a danger of interpreting too much. Sometimes you just want to.
True. Yeah, I think it's like, my first thing would be, okay, she's not allowed to have that. What else can we do? Ask what she wants, and try to negotiate an alternative, I think would be the best answer. Not to say, no, you can't have that, because they don't like that answer.
Yeah.
And you are right. This is the correct answer. Ask what she wants and try to negotiate an alternative. Is it really to make sure that the audit happened? Then there are other ways that can prove that the audit was conducted. The inspectors are aware that they should not be reading internal audit reports. So asking for that would also make kind of less sense. But yes, sometimes they may ask for something they know they should not. And they are trying to see if you comply with the request. It's, they may be a little bit cunning and trying to trick you. So don't be surprised if that happens, or they are just they don't show their, let's say, their letter of authorization, and you should ask for it. And so they are testing in these all kinds of ways if you know what you should do, what they should do, and so on. So don't be surprised if that situation ever happens, really.
And this is the type of question that I would probably skip or go back to and say, let me because sometimes as I go through all the questions and then I come back to this, I kind of rethink it. Like if I'm, if I'm not really comfortable with my first, with the answer, then I go back to it.
Yeah, sometimes we read another question and it gives us some kind of hint what to answer. And the other possibility is that basically we will say, okay, what's the least stupid answer here? And let's go for that one. If I put it very simply.
And something like this too, this should be in your inspection SOP, really, that the company should have already made that decision of we are not going to share, which they shouldn't be, audit reports. They may make that decision to do it. I mean, some companies are like total transparency, but the audit host or whoever is being asked the question should know what the company's stand is on that, and that be in the SOP. So there's no question about it. In that EMA inspection just now, there were lots of vendors. And so they ask repeatedly for vendor audit lists. And then they ask for the scope. And so that was added to yet another table, what the scope was and the timing and the classification, risk-based. So they were asking more than just, did you do the audit or not? They wanted little pieces of information on each one of those, but not the audit report. They never asked for the report. It was just that the classification of risk.
And Kamala, I was going to say, Michael's joined us, just so you know.
Okay, wonderful. So now we have true or false. Oh, hi, Michael. Maybe Pam, you can read this question. I should not be the only one.
True or false? After the inspection is complete, the company does not receive a Form 483 with findings. Is everything fine and your firm is approved as a GCP facility? Put your answer in the chat, please. Yes or no?
And this should not be difficult, this one.
I'm seeing a trend here.
Okay.
Looks like we have all B's, as in boy.
Okay.
So
Anyone
and-
has a different opinion? So anyone would say yes? If there is no 483, it means we are approved. And trust me, some companies are trying to put it this way for their PR purposes.
it's
I've
a press
seen it
release the next day.
more than once.
Yeah. So we want to go to the answer is no.
We have the inspection operations manual. You have always at the bottom of the slide, you see, and that's it, your handouts, you see the reference where you can find the relevant part of the regulation or guideline.
That's an excellent guide to read. Just even if you're working in a company and want to say, oh, what kind of questions would they ask us? Sometimes being a mock inspector, go through those questions right from the beginning to the end. And actually, I've heard from some companies that sometimes the FDA inspectors will do that. They open that, they ask all those questions, one right after another. So they utilize it as a almost like a study guide or a strict guide for them to ask questions. So I have had the experience, I have to admit, that in for investigational site audits, investigator site audits, I've had PIs put the audit certificate up on the wall and say, look, we passed an inspection. So I usually try to tell them it's not a pass or a fail. It's just documentation of that. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, by the way, as you say, pass or fail. I had a client who wanted me to audit a vendor in a particular country that is known to have problems from time to time. Not all of their companies, some are great, but some of them, unfortunately, taint the reputation of the country. Let me put it this way. And they wanted me, I told them, my certificate, the audit certificate is just the evidence that the audit took place, what was the scope, and that's that. It does not mean they passed, they were excellent, that there were no problems. And they insist that they really need it. So to wait for the answers to any observations that might be in place, review, analyze their CAPAs, evaluate effectiveness, and then issue some kind of pass. Well, it was a tough negotiation, but since the R&D director is a good friend of mine for many, many, many years, and I understand their reasons, I still need to find a way to draft it in a way that I can feel comfortable about and they can settle with. It's a major diplomatic effort. So
Wow.
I will see this weekend what I can do about it. I don't like
creative wording.
I don't like it at all, but yeah, that's. But by the way, the auditing was a good company, so that helps me. If they were not, I would never do that. But they are an affiliate of a U.S. headquarters, and if you walk in, if you review the processes, you can imagine you are at the American company in California, where the headquarters are located, because the processes are the same, and it's really a good one. So I feel quite say, okay, for this scope, they passed. For what was reviewed, they did. There was nothing raising concerns. Still, it does not mean something might not happen in future. And I told my client, I cannot guarantee they are not going to screw up your study. That I'm reviewing current situation, snapshot now, not 2 years upstream, what is going to happen yet. People may change, ownership may change. I don't know. So, Jenny, can you take this one?
Sure. True or false, an FDA investigator can be required to sign a HIPAA agreement or confidentiality agreement prior to conducting the inspection. What do you think? Should be an easy one. If you've listened to Chrissy Cochran.
Yeah. So what is coming to our chat? All the answers are C, I guess.
So we've only got 3 so far. We got 2 A's and a B.
Okay. Let's see. At least 1 or 2 more.
Yep. I think we're divided. We're a divided group.
Okay. Michael, what is your opinion?
The answer is false. You can't ask inspectors to sign any kind of agreements or confidentiality. In addition, the informed consent, the subject's already acknowledged that FDA can review their records.
Yeah, good point. And indeed, the answer is B. It's false. So it's also, again, in FDA inspection operations manual. But if you take Michael's perspective, then the study participants, and we talk about the GCP environment, study participants signed that they agree that their records can be reviewed by auditors, inspectors, sponsors, representatives, monitors. We do not list these people just for fun. There is a reason behind. So they agreed. So we may not need any kind of additional agreement. And even if we try, then the inspector is not authorized to sign anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, inspectors are not allowed to sign any agreements on behalf of the US government. There's only one person in this country that can sign on behalf of the government, and that's the president.
Yeah, and that's a comment, Chrissy, if you've had an opportunity to listen to her at one of the SQA meetings, she has been asked that question in different contexts, and she'll always say that they will not sign.
A lot of times they won't even sign in for meetings. We had a FDA meeting with an attendees list, and I think what they want also is they don't want their signatures copied and utilized in any nefarious ways.
Yeah, thinking now about the AI tools and capabilities where you can steal identities, that being so cautious is not just for fun. And now we have the opposite situation. So, Michael, can you take this one?
Okay. During the inspection, the FDA investigator asks a staff person to read and sign an affidavit that she has prepared. What should the escort do? So A, comply with the request, B, refuse to review, read, and sign, or C, contact your legal counsel for advice.
So again, use the chat function and just give you a tip for the answer.
So far, I got a number of C's, a B, but mostly C.
Okay, let's speed up a little bit since I'm checking the time. So the correct answer is, my colleague panelists, what was your tip? Shoot one.
Well, my answer would be B. You have the right to refuse to review, read, or sign any document the FDA presents.
Yeah.
However, many companies would say, before you just tell the FDA no, that, say, well, I'll talk to our legal counsel, but, the answer really should be B.
I would say B, but the way they word it is like makes it a little bit, hostile. Like, don't even look at it, just say no, So yeah, I would say B, but also I agree that
When refuse may sound a little bit like rude, maybe.
yes.
But you can refuse in a very diplomatic way. And diplomats are doing it every single day and not just once.
Yeah, the reason you want to even avoid reviewing the document, because if you look at the document, but then say, I won't sign it, FDA could note in their notes that, you know, a participant reviewed it and did not raise any objections, you know, and to them, that's the equivalent of it's okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you want to be real careful about even looking at the document or reading it, or sometimes the FDA would say, well, I'll read it to you, so you don't have to look at it. But if you do that and you don't object, you know, they'll put in their notes that the participant did not object to the observations.
It's interesting. I mean, and we've talked about, I've, you know, been part of discussions. We've talked about, you know, you're not required to sign an affidavit, but I haven't ever heard it kind of extended to don't read it if you don't. So that's very interesting, Michael.
Well, if you talk to regulatory lawyers who work in this field,
okay,
they'll tell you, don't even let them read it to you. If the FDA starts reading it, I mean, I've heard people say you should get up and leave the room. I mean,
oh,
but you have to remember, if they're writing an affidavit and asking you to certify to certain facts in writing, they have some significant issues with your inspection.
yes.
You have a lot of concerns.
Yeah.
And as we noted before about having not supplying audit reports, internal audit reports, this should be something outlined very specifically in your inspection SOPs. So everybody who trains on that is aware of this. Do not listen to, do not sign, do not read, do not, you know, any type of quote unquote affidavit. And so it's like, sorry, you know, they can't do that, period.
You can even say that's in our company policy, in our SOP. By the way, only in GMP area, QA has legal responsibility together with the head of the facility. These two people can go to the court. It's not in the GCP, and you are not most likely the authorized signatory for your company. So that was also my answer when I was asked to sign a confidentiality agreement by an auditee. I was saying, do you want me to sign as a person, or do you want a company representative to sign? If you want company representative, please contact this person. If you want me as a person, or if you want both of us, please make your request clear.
Yeah.
So
we have a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Someone raised the question about, you know, would FDA note this on a 483 or inspection report about the refusals? And yeah, they would write down that I wrote an affidavit and the participant refused to read or review it or whatever. So it would go in their notes. But what that means, if it came to a legal proceeding and there was an issue about compliance and things, the FDA could say, well, this is my observations, but it was never confirmed by the inspected party. If you allow them to read it to you, or if you were to sign it, then you've confirmed their findings, which just makes their job easier. So yes, they would probably note it in the 43 and the inspection report, but they would also have to note the fact that you never acknowledged it or didn't agree with anything. And so it comes down to all inspection observation, their word against yours.
Yeah. Good point. What type of records is the company legal? Is it legally? Because I have the toolbar on the top. Required to provide to an FDA investigator during a site inspection. Select all that apply. So now it's the select all that apply. Informed consent forms, training records, QA audit reports, delegation log, lab data, medical charts, records, everything mentioned above except QA audit reports. And if you try in a real exam to start clicking one after the other, you will notice that you cannot tick more than one answer, which immediately should drive you to the correct one. So that's a small trick to make your life easier. If it says select all that apply, But if I start taking informed consent, then I take training, but then informed consent gets unticked, it should give me aha, so I can make one tick and still select all that apply. So there is only one option left what to answer. Meaning with this kind of hint, everybody should be answering correctly in our chat. And what do we have there?
G.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So let's move here forward. Okay, Jenny, can you take this one, please?
Yes, let me reduce this. An organization has been notified of an upcoming regulatory inspection. Which activities will best prepare the project team and organization for the inspection? Writing an audit training plan. I'm going to abbreviate this. Ensuring the trial master file is archived. Defer to the agency's inspection manual. Require staff to read the manual and document this as training, and ensure a procedure specific to inspections is in place, and ensure training on the procedure is documented.
In reality, you may do all of these.
Yes.
But what best prepares the project team and organization?
Yeah, this is another common, not so much trick, but thing to look for in the question. Here is asking for the best answer because, as Camilla said, you might do all of these things, but which is the best one or the first one or the most, some questions will say most appropriate or first thing you would do or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you may have the opposite question saying, what of these activities would not best prepare the project team? So just notice the not, because we skip this small word so many times and we answer the exact opposite. Happens to me, and I've seen it happening to everyone else.
It looks like our answers, majority is 4, and we have one number 2.
And majority is correct.
Yeah.
Vox populi, vox Dei, meaning the voice of the people, the voice of the God.
And this actually goes back to what we've been talking about, is make sure you have a inspection SOP, make sure everybody reviews that, and ensure, well, of course, ensure the training is documented always.
Yeah, and this is question that I prepared. This is not practice exam. This is my question. This is more for discussion. We have a couple of minutes. A research center conducts 3 studies. Let's call them A, B, and C for the same sponsor and with the same investigation of product. The site team is the same in all 3 studies. A regulatory inspector announces an inspection of study B. During the inspection, he requests to see some records for studies A and C as well. You are the research center QA officer and you are present during the inspection. What would you do? Is it okay to show, because they only announced for study B and now they are asking for A and C, a couple of things here and there. So is it okay? Would you make sure that you do your best to meet that request? Would you try to say, but this was not announced and we are not ready? Which is not the best answer.
And panic is not one of the answers for this.
Yeah, and it's not the best advisor either.
No.
So with this, I will just get out of the screen sharing because I want to see you before.
Yeah, there's one response. Yes, I would provide the requested docs.
Other opinions? Anyone else thinks otherwise?
I actually had this, this was a CRO audit, and the inspector was there for, the company was, what is it? The was like on a quality hold. And so they were going to the CROs to look at our CRO to look at things. And he said, oh, while I'm here, can I look at this study that I was working on? So it was completely unexpected. I hadn't even been involved in the other study. So yes, I came in front of the FDA and provided the question, or, you know, provided the answers to what they had the questions on. So it's happened.
I've seen it in clinical trials as well, and IRBs tend to do the same thing. They come for the inspection, or IRBs for the audit, and they say, oh, we have extra time, so let's look at this one as well. So
I mean,
extra time is a wonderful reason.
My understanding is, because those other studies have already filed an IND and they are currently under the IND, that the FDA has the ability to look at any of those clinical studies.
Yeah,
Especially the team is the same, the PI is the same, the product is the same. Then
yeah.
Well, even if it was a different product, if it's, as Pam said, if it's under an IND, it's subject to inspection. The other thing to keep in mind when they present the 482, the notice of inspection, it doesn't list what study they're inspecting on that notice. So it's an inspection. They've told you what their primary focus will be, but they can expand their focus if they feel there's
Yeah.
a reason to.
They know everything that is happening at the site before they arrive. They've got a list of, so we had to have terminate a site for one of my studies, and it was a good clinician, very poor researcher, and it was too many problems, so we stopped it. But the FDA did, and then you have to notify the FDA of the non-compliance and the, you know, your termination prematurely of an investigator. And so they did go inspect, and we were, you know, prepping because we knew it was for our, and they told us because it was for our study. But when they showed up, they're like, yeah, we spent a couple of days looking at our study, and then they go, okay, now we're going to go to the next study. They never said they were going to do that, but that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt, rather than just say, sure, I'll get the records, to ask why.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can certainly ask. They may say because I can, or because I feel it's important. But you certainly ought to ask, and you should document in your notes, and be, you know, just keep good records of what else they asked for and what they documents you showed them. But even if it's a different sponsor and a different study and a different IP, you know, if it's under an IND, FDA has the authority to inspect it, you know, with notice or without notice. So, you know, they could say, well, the inspection of study 2 is a for cause without notice, and you can't say no.
yeah, they have the authority. So I can try to clarify if they are looking for something particular, how we can support them the best way, trying to make it, you know, user friendly. But
I will share a little.
saying no or saying this is out of your scope is not a good idea.
Yeah,
I'll share a little tidbit that Chrissy shared. I was not at the last meeting, but the one before, I think. But she was talking about types of inspection findings and issues. And one was, they are, for like investigator initiated studies, they have cited investigators for not filing an IND. And they know that because these investigators will publish on their results, and they have people in the FDA, they have staff they're looking for that. They're looking for looking at those publications, and then going back to see that there was a corresponding IND for that particular study that is being referenced in literature. And if it's not, they're going to go inspect and cite.
yeah. Also, some institutions, the investigator will not file an IND, but they'll put it in clinicaltrials.gov. And that's another database FDA can look at, because that's a public database.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be somewhat unusual, but it's, again, you know, it's within their scope if they decided to expand it to an unannounced inspection on the second or third study or whatever. Particularly, I mean, again, that should be a clue to you that they're maybe seeing problems, and they want to find out, is it systematic problems across study and across sponsors, or is it just limited to the one that they started with or whatever? But all of it is, potentially fair game for them.
True. Unfortunately, we reached our time limit. Is there any last urgent question or comment or advice? We still have a couple of meetings, so if you feel like I need to keep running now and I don't have time, but I have a question. You can use the Connect page and you can just write your question and we are happy to answer, or you can keep it for next time. And until then, until next Thursday, I wish you happy Friday, wonderful weekend, and a good start of next week. And successful preparation for the exam. The time is coming. It's coming slowly, but maybe you feel it's running too fast.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. Bye bye.
you,
And
everybody.
thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.